तमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ नमो भगवते वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्म विद्याचार्याय नचिकेतसे च So here in these two verses we see the Vairagya of Nachiketa, because even having been repeatedly tempted, what is Vairagya? Not interested in the fruits of action either here or hereafter. Delinking oneself from the fruits of action is a prerequisite to delinking oneself from the notion that one is an actor. That is the basic thing. Otherwise one is, that's why Vairagya is a prerequisite. Because ultimately where is one going? One is going to the place of saying action happens blessed by the presence of the I, without the I participating in the actions or in the fruits thereof. So the connection between the actor, the notion of the actor, what maintains the notion of the actor is the fruit of action. Not the action itself. The action is badhita, meaning it is sublated when I understand that the actor is Atma, because everything is Atma. Atma is not the actor. Yeah, if you don't fully grasp this right now, it's okay. Agre spashtam bhavet. Means later on it will become clear. So this is the ultimate understanding. What is the understanding? That everything is Atma. So the actor in me is Atma. But the actor is not, the actor is in me perhaps, blessed by Atma, but the actor is not myself. Actor is in me but not as me. That because all the roles are given up, including that of the actor, knower, enjoyer. You witness everything as it is happening, but it's not happening to you. That you is the one whose hands are washed off from any connections. That's why that you, which one is trying to discover, is asanga, unassailed by all kinds of complaints, all kinds of unsavory connections with actor, knower, enjoyer, etc. So the actor identity is hard to comprehend, the identification with the actor, and harder still to give up. So therefore, the Vairagya that is prescribed is a precursor, because you have to start giving up somewhere. So what do you give up? And the Tattva Bodha defines Vairagya as Iha Amutra Phala Bhoga Viragaha. Viraga. Vigataha Ragaha Yasmat, from which all coloration has departed. What is this coloration that has departed? Penchant. No, not so much raga here doesn't mean ragadvesha. Raga means coloration here. From ranj, to be colorful. And ragadveshas are colorful, that's why they get the name raga. But here, raga means, any kind of penchant. The desire on the part of the ignorant person to quickly attach oneself to something else. That is what is called raga. Quickly I want to put myself under an umbrella. Quickly I want to attach myself to something else. And what is that something else? That something else is bigger, better, a source of more security, whatever it is. It could be an object, it could be another person, it could be a circumstance, it could be anything. That which I hold on to, for dear life, this is what is called raga. And where does generally the human being finds security? In the sense of control, that I am a producer of the circumstances in my life, which then I can set out to enjoy. You see, this is how we have to think. Why Vairagya? Why is Vairagya a prerequisite? This is the logical understanding. Because, I'm trying to control and produce my circumstances so that the colorations in me, the ragas and dveshas, are thriving. How do they thrive? They thrive because I have given them certain conditions to grow. To grow. And certain other conditions, I have blocked off where they might accidentally meet with death, the ragadveshas. How do I ensure this control? Like a scientist in a laboratory, he or she wants some, like this is what Fleming did, accidentally, he found some bacteria were growing and suddenly one day they all died. The dish, the petri dish had caught mold, and then that's how the antibiotic, penicillin was harvested, because accidentally all the bacteria were killed. And here, like a scientist in the lab, I'm protecting the ragadveshas from being killed because I'm trying to reproduce the same circumstances so that they keep proliferating. This is the human endeavor. This is what is called pravritti nivritti. This is what is going to be called in the next chapter. And pravritti means creating favorable conditions for ragadvesha. Nivritti means retreating from unfavorable conditions where the ragadveshas complain of being too hot. So you take them on a holiday on the seaside, and then you take the ragadveshas to the hills, and when they complain some more, you take them elsewhere, meaning they are more important than even yourself. So they start to run you and ruin your ambitions, your pursuits. Aren't they ragadveshas too? Yes, but they are not the same as these, which, because those long-term pursuits and ambitions about what one wants to be in life and how one wants to present oneself, they come from a deeper place. They come from the place of the buddhi, not the chittam. Chittam is the place. Chittam means the emotive place, is what gets, is the factory of ragadvesha. It keeps churning them out and the ragadveshas overtake. And then you start saying, I don't feel like this, I don't feel like that, I feel like this. And purely based on feelings, all decisions cannot be made. You have to access a deeper sense of being that is deeper than the fleeting feeling. This is what we call the faculty of knowing, which is buddhi. This is what we have to see. So viragaha, so vigataha ragaha yasmat, yasmat from which all raga has departed. How to make these ragas go away? I mean, they claim ancestral property. What is it? Your antahkarana has become their ancestral property. Why? Because they have lived there for generations. Even before you were born, they were there. This is their ancestral property and they are not going to leave it. They are going to sue you and claim that your antahkarana means your inner, what is that called? Inner instrument of feeling, knowing, all this. They they proliferate the brain too. There are certain bugs that go to the brain. The first bug is raga, dvesha, that is the bug. So they keep bugging you, that's why they are called bugs. And so viraga is, where should I begin? Because, in like a terrible bacterial infestation, where to start? Which one to go after? Because they have colonies. Yeah. Raga colonies and Dvesha colonies, and they also know how to morph, like now they have graduated from bacterial status to viral status. They have gone viral, and then what has, like those videos on the internet, they have gone viral in the sense that it's just, they know, they're very clever. When you administer a medicine, they conveniently change so that the medicine doesn't, kill them. So what should we do in the circumstances of an over proliferation of raga dvesha, which is threatening to ruin the desire for knowledge, this desire to be free of all bondage? It's ruining this desire because the desire is there. It is a shubha ichha. Shubha means, fortunate, auspicious, ichha, desire. And the raga dveshas have proliferated so much that the person is gone, not able at all to distinguish between ashubha and shubha. What is ashubha? Unfortunate desire. So the unfortunate proliferates over the fortunate, and one has no viveka, and one has no sense of discrimination. Forget vairagya. So then the viveka comes in, and he's going to demonstrate it in the next 3 verses, the viveka. But vairagya you see here, and vairagya comes, where is the point of intervention here? Because in any kind of addiction, an intervention is advised. What is an intervention? All the loved ones get together, without the addicted one, and they plan a strategy. First they block off all the doors so that the person doesn't run away. Everything is locked, blocked. Then they pretend they are having a party, and unsuspectingly they lure the person who is, who they observe as being extremely addicted, and they corral the person, and they give what is called tough love, right? So what happens in the tough love? What happens? The person is told, we love you, but we don't love your behavior. Your conduct is outrageous. You're hurting yourself, you're hurting your chances in life, you're hurting your liver, if it's alcoholism, and you're hurting all your body, your mind, your senses, and we love you, enough to not let you do this. Correct? So this corralling takes place, and when the person has nowhere to turn, and if they have good punya, because this is really, grace has to operate here. Without grace, no intervention succeeds. If in the midst of all this they are able to kind of even briefly see a sliver, a glimmer of some sunshine through the clouds, then they can agree to be helped. And even in that little, later they will change their mind and they'll give a hard time. But in this vulnerable moment, they can say, all right, I'm going to try this, all right, I see how I have hurt people. I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do this. I didn't mean to put you through this. And I'm going to get help. Please help me, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go. So this is that moment of vulnerability where this control, the person who says, I'm not addicted, who is in denial, has this false ersatz sense of control over their circumstances. So too, the actor here. The actor here has a sense of control vis-a-vis the fruit of action. The actor says, well, It's written plainly in the Veda. You pour some fire and the ghee, and then you pour some ghee into the fire and you get what you want. It's as simple as that. And then A for Agni, it's A, B, C, it's nothing. From A to Z we say, but in Veda we say from Ashwamedha to Agnihotra, Agnihotra to Ashwamedha. This is what it is, we know this is what it is. So I can get rich, I have the drive, I own a few companies, what's the trouble to swallow up a few more? No problem. I can do this. And this hubris is, how is this produced? It is produced by having this false connection with the result of actions. And the intervention here, in terms of the prerequisite, is delinking that connection. Even in the intervention story, even though the people are saying we love you but your behavior is outrageous, you're hurting us, you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting your chances for success and having a good life, even though the people may say this, it is their own desire, their own ability to see, and that decision alone makes the difference. Here too, Vairagya cannot be imposed. It is self-propelled. I make the decision one fine day to de-link the connection between myself as the producer and stop being, how do I do that? Producer and the result of action. How do I cut the connection? By stopping my addiction to the result of actions, either here or the hereafter. So therein lies the addiction. I think I can produce my circumstances like that. That is the pride. And here you see Nachiketa saying, Tabaiva Vahaha, keep your Mercedes Benz, keep your BMWs, keep all these things, keep your Rolex, keep your celestial musicians. I don't want them. It will just be a headache because, they will not like the weather down here. What? And they will not eat what I give them. So I don't want all this headache. Everything is a headache, Everything looks good in the beginning. Everything starts to look very shiny. And when you approach this thinking it's a piece of silver, it turns out to be mother of pearl. That's all it is. Everything is a disappointment. Upon a closer look, you realize you really do not want it. This is what it is. And so, Tavaiva Vahaha, Tavandritya Gite, he has cut the connection between the results of action, and then what? And himself as an actor. And here, the results of action, when you give up, the actor is very easy to go. Because what is the reason to produce? No reason. What is the reason to act? No reason. So he gives up the results of action. Here without acting he is getting them for free. And he says, I don't want this. You keep this. What I want I'm not going to change. I've already asked. And you said you will give 3 boons because you neglected me for 3 days. You're busy killing people. And then you came back. And then, and you also did not know this. Your wife had to tell you to attend to me. And I never said, attend to me, give me boons. You yourself did it for your own good. That is you producing your actions so that you will not have bad papa because of neglecting a cute young guest like myself. You offered the boons. I didn't say I want boons. I was happy sitting in the marble garden looking at the statues. And then what? You offered the boons. First 2 I asked, you gave. Third one I have asked you to give. There is no negotiation here. Vairagya does not negotiate. Most of the time, Viveka, what is Viveka? The ability to discriminate between what and what? Nitya and Anitya. What is Nitya?
That which
Is eternal.
Impermanent, correct?
No.
Permanent. Nitya means that which is not changing. Nitaram sthitihi, that which is there always. Nitya. Anitya is the negation of that. Yeah. That's why Anitya, all these things. That's why, the negative particle is seen as Ashubha. Ashubha means what? Inauspicious. Yeah. That's why there was a big discussion in the Bhagavad Gita, Ashocyan, how can you begin with a negative particle? That's why we don't give names even with a negative particle. Yeah. Like Amala. Amala means what? Not dirty. Why don't you say Shuddha, Shuddhi, clean, pure? Why negate it? You don't give negative names. And you don't give names that are funny, like Pankaja. Pankaja means, it's a very nice name for the lotus. Lotus is called Pankaja. Panka means sludge. Jaha means Jayate iti Jaha, that which is born. Born of sludge. That is appropriate, while it is appropriate to the lotus, it's not appropriate for a man or a woman. Yeah, born of sludge. Not nice. Fine for the lotus, but not for a human being. Because the whole life they have to live with this feeling that they are born of sludge. Even without being Christian, Yeah. So, because in Christianity this whole thing is very highly contested even amongst the Christians themselves. Born of sin, originally. Anyway, so this is, so the anitya, nitya, anitya vastu vivekaha. So that discrimination between that which is inauspicious because it is temporary, because it is finite, and the permanent. So usually this precedes Vairagya. First I have Viveka, I know what I want, and then I know how to make my life in prioritizing what I want. That prioritization is very important. First I have to know what I want. What I want relatively. Okay, two meals a day, fine. No, but we are supposed to have 3. Well, 2 is enough. Yeah, when the doctor was here, he said, if you eat once a day, you are a yogi. If you eat twice a day, you are a bhogi. If you eat thrice a day, you are a rogi. Rogi means, yogi first means a spiritual person. Bhogi means the one who is into consumption. Rogi means the one who is full of diseases. Yeah, 2 meals a day, let us say. What do I want in the relative? 2 meals a day, a roof over the head, some clothes to wear and some to put in the wash, and then what else? And then, few other things perhaps. Other than that, this is what constitutes my relative needs. Other than that, then, the whole life cannot be full of a string of relative needs. And relative plus relative does not make absolute. We know that. So, ultimately, what is it that I want? Yes, I want to be comfortable. Yes, I don't want to go, I don't want to go without food, definitely. I want to have things to eat. I want to be comfortable, relatively. But then what is it that I want absolutely? Why am I feeding the body every day without fail, like an alarm clock? The stomach starts to have its own alarm, and it will not, at least the alarm is more pliable. The alarm clock has a snooze setting, meaning for 10 minutes it will keep quiet. This has no snooze setting. You press the belly button, when it's rumbling, it will not stop rumbling. It has no snooze setting, this alarm. You can tell the time. You don't need a clock. You can tell the time by the stomach, correct? So what for I am feeding it every day? What for am I feeding the brain? Because feeding the body is feeding the brain. What for have I these thoughts? What for am I yearning? Ultimately, I'm yearning. No matter what I gain, I'm not contented. I'm not satisfied because the thrill subsides. Just like skydiving, thrill subsides, finishes. That's why you have to go again. and that zipping and all these, dangerous sports, that thrill is there for the ultimate. It's a sad replacement for the ultimate. It's like saying, I want moksha, but if you give me some mocha, I will settle for it. A very sad replacement. Because what I want, what does that thrill constitutes? As the thrill for these kinds of dangerous rock climbing and all these kinds of sports is so that I defy death. That's what the whole thing. It's a death-defying tactic, and they do that with these motorcycles also. Yeah, they call themselves the angels of hell. Yeah, that is what it is. And all these tactics are so, that is the way Nitya is delineated by ones whose buddhi is prakritam, is not yet matured. But Nitya is not some devilish tactics. In daredevilry there is no Nitya. And whatever I am seeking, the thrill of it subsides. That's why I get addicted to do this again and again and again. Nitya, the desire, is delineated by understanding that no matter what I achieve, the dissatisfied fellow inside me is not going away. What to do? That is what is Nitya. And that is first delineated. We already see that. How Nachiketa graduates from heaven to knowing about the Atma. First he also wants that, and then he quickly realizes that going to heaven means what? Coming back. Like a bad coin which is never out of circulation. The jiva is like a bad coin which keeps coming back. Yes. Khota sikka we say in Hindi. Yeah. Like a counterfeit coin. Why counterfeit coin? The jiva is, who is just interested in various counters, bhoga, at the various counters of experience. Counterfeit. That's all it is. Like a counterfeit coin keeps being in circulation in the jagat. Yes, deceiving everyone that it comes in contact with. This is the jiva. And so the viveka usually precedes vairagya. Sometimes it's the other way around. If the viveka is enforced, a disappointing thing happens, the significant other leaves, something happens in early childhood, some difficult situations one is not able to overcome, one is not able to explain, one is not able to understand. So that gives vairagya first. I really want I want a new thing, a new beginning. I don't want to be attached to all this. I hereby give up everything from before. That is the vairagya, enforced vairagya from circumstances. And although that is not very lasting, because it soon the mind latches on to something else, but sometimes the grace overpowers and the person comes to the teaching at that vulnerable time, and in the hands of a proper lineage, in the hands of the one who is properly taught, that ersatz vairagya becomes true, is converted into true vairagya, because the person managed to expose themselves to the teaching in that crucial time. So it doesn't matter, even if it's a faltering mumukshutvam, like a lamp that is in the strongest wind possible, about to be blown off, and there is just a flicker of desire for moksha. Other desires are like a conflagration, but the moksha desire is tiny, limping, faltering desire, like even the wick of a lamp that is, what is that, assailed by the winds of other ragas. The teaching provides that, what is that, protection for that lamp to be steady and to burn brightly. So one has to just come under the spell of the teaching, because that one is spellbound by the ragadveshas will not change. So we put all the desires in one basket called moksha. Here it's okay to do. They say don't put all the, what is that, eggs? Yeah, eggs in one basket. Because if one breaks, all of them will break. That's the idea. But here also that's the idea. Let all of them let all of them go. Just titrate all the desires to one desire. Yeah. percolate them into one, because really it is one. It is just like this one universe, one Atma has as though variegated through many. It looks as though it is many. All the desires which look manifold are really one. What is that one? Free me from this notion of being this discontented, wanting person. And Nachiketa is quickly realizing this. And so therefore he says, I cut the cord of trying to produce my own ends. Forget Nachiketa Agni. Somebody else would have said, oh, I appeared in Who's Who of the Veda. I am known now. Yeah. I am well known. And they would have taken a Xerox of that and put it on their wall. I have appeared, I am named after one fire ritual called Nachiketa. People do this because nowadays, a very cheap way of honoring on part of governments is to name you on some distant star. Yeah. This is the thing. They do that starting with high school. Yeah. For the children who excel, and college also. You excel, you do something very difficult, fairly difficult, and you find something. It's not earth-shattering, but it's, you have to be given something. Before they used to give a purse, some money. Now they save the money. Yeah, because everything, all the education is full of deficit. The brain of the administrators is not on deficit. So they have innovative ways to honor the student, So some distant star found by the Hubble telescope, and is named after this child or this teenager or this, college goer. And they give one certificate. Did they ask the star, do you want, to be named after this fellow? They didn't even take permission. Did they ask the star, do you already have a name? Are we just imposing this? No. Horrible. And then they give you a stamped thing. Now, your name will be, you will be starring in the universe. Dhruva is already taken. Some distance. Sometimes it's just an asteroid. You're named after, what is that? Outer space dust. That's what. Named after a rock. And then you proudly frame that. Without knowing that it is you who have been framed. You frame that and put it on your wall and say, look, where is this star? You can't even see it. It's so tiny, It's so tiny and so far away, you can't even see it. But you can see it on my wall. I'm named after it. And neither do you have the money to buy the telescope to see it, to have darshanam of the star. No. But you have it on your wall. So Nachiketa likewise could have xeroxed the palm leaf on which Nachiketa Agni it was written, and he could have, framed it on his wall. He is not caring about that also. He's left all that behind. You don't see him obsessing about the father. Usually if somebody is worried about the father, what is he doing now? Oh, he's mad at me. Oh, when will I go back? Oh, this Yama is so garrulous. He keeps offering me some things or the other. He could have thought all those things. He doesn't think anything. He's ready for this knowledge. You see him readying himself right in front of our eyes. You see this happening. So that the Kathopanishad, the teaching hasn't yet begun. The teaching will begin in the second chapter. Just like the Bhagavad Gita. That's why the Bhagavad Gita heavily leans on the Kathopanishad and borrows from it also. So there the teaching begins in the second chapter, which was 11th verse. Here the teaching begins in the 14th mantra of the second chapter. See, there are certain similarities. So here, second Valli rather. Anyway, so now all this is just an introduction that is not going to waste, because we see him maturing in front of our very eyes. We will see him getting less patient with Yama. Now he is just stating his case. Now he is stating his case. And he does that beautifully in the last verse, in the last mantra. He categorically denies any association with all these things of luring things offered by Yama, and he says, don't you keep them. I don't even want to hear about them because I don't want long life. And you are a bundle of you are offering me bundles, but it is you who is a bundle of contradictions, because you are offering me long life along with what? Something that will sap me of my strength and energy. What? All these objects of enjoyment. Even food you take. You know, you eat the food for the first 40 years of your life. And then what? Then you say, oh, I can't have gluten. And then after that you say, I can't have sugar. I can't have salt. I can't have nightshades. That includes half the vegetables that we buy, including potatoes. I can't have cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous means because they crucified me. That's why they crucify this body. Cruciferous includes all this, you know, this cabbage variety. Yeah. I can't have cruciferous vegetables. It's bad for my thyroid, you know. All right, what else is left, you know? I can't have anything that grows underground. All right. I can't have anything that creeps. All right. No creepy vegetables. I can't have anything that is nightshade, I already said. And what else is left? I can't have anything that has a lot of water content because I retain water. That's so pumpkins excluded. Yeah, pumpkins excluded on 2 counts. First, because they are creepy, they grow on a creeper. And second, because they are full of water. The 9/10 of the pumpkin is just water. Then what? I can't have beans. No beans. No wheat. No cream of wheat, because the word wheat comes. No wheat grass either, because the word wheat is there. And what can you have? Some dal water. Yeah. Karela juice. Bitter melon juice. So, why do you say I can't have this, I can't have that, I can't have salt, I can't have sugar, I can't have, you know, spice, I can't have this, I can't have that? That means the food is now taking revenge, because you've eaten it for 40 years, now it's going to start eating into you. And this is what the Taittiriya Upanishad says. Ahamannam, 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 ahamannadah, ahamannadah, ahamannadah. The person of knowledge sings, I am the food, I am the eater of the food. That's where it stops. We have to extrapolate, I am the one, you know, I am the food that eats into me, into this body. That's why jarayanti tejaha. The sharpness of the mind is gone in all these indulgences, starting with food. And you're offering me this, and you say you are an expert in bundle number 1, bundle number 2, bundle number 3, but you yourself are a bundle of contradictions, because you're offering me long life, but you're making me lose my vigor, mental vigor, my spiritual vigor, my physical vigor. Of course, you're giving me things that sap my strength, sap my resolve, sap my values and ethics. What are you doing to me? You know? And you're obsessed with wealth, because you mentioned it more than once. And for this I have a special verse just for you. Kincha न वित्तेन तर्पणीयो मनुष्यः लप्स्यामहे वित्तमद्राक्ष्मच्चेत्वा जीविष्यामो यावदीशिष्यसि त्वम् वरस्तु मे वरणीयः स एव
वरस्तु मे वरणीयः स एव.
Yeah. From trip to satisfy. Tarpaniyah. Trip plus what? Tarpaniyah nyat. So that which is worthy of satisfaction. Tarpana yogyah. Tarpaniyah. That which is worthy of satisfaction. No, this is not nyat. Iya. Something that has iya. Yes. So, tarpaniyah. Same meaning. That which is worthy of contentment. Na vittena, not by wealth. Is the person recognizing themselves as worthy of contentment. And then, so if the person doesn't recognize themselves as, as how does the person not recognize themselves as contented through wealth? Because wealth comes, wealth goes. And even if it doesn't go, my desire for it doesn't go. Along with the wealth, I keep wanting more and more. So from this it is very clear that what I want is satisfaction, not the wealth. Mistakenly I think that the wealth is giving me satisfaction. Plus he says one more important thing that you seem to forget is that you are showering me with all these things, and you have said that you are mat prattabhihi, means sent by me, blessed by me, you will be wealthy, and you are a celestial. And when you say these things, they come true. And you have offered me in the last 4 mantras boons such as long life, wealth, lots of sons and daughters, lots of grandchildren. You've offered me this whole package. Even if I don't take it, I will get it. This is Viveka. Because you are a Bhagavan, like Bhagavan. You are a Devata. You are a Devata. You are an exalted person who has Punya Vishesha, meaning desires are not there, not predominant. And so if your desires are not predominant and you wish something for others, it comes true. This is what is Satya Sankalpa, we saw that. Adi Shankara says Satya Sankalpa. And also, who goes to Yamaloka and comes out alive? That itself is a great blessing. Of course I will live. As long as you think I should live, I will live. And if you want to give me a long life, you give, no problem. But I have understood one thing through my Viveka. Na vittena tarpaniyaha. Through wealth alone, the person, a person is not the source, is not contented. Wealth is not the source of contentment for a person. And then besides, lapsyamahe. Lapsyamahe means, prapsyamahe. We will get, we will get. Vittam adrakshma chetva. Adrakshma, having seen you, having had your darshan, money will come in plenty, because you have been saying that. Please have money, have money, have money, 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 money. And each time you say that, it's a blessing. Like Adi Shankara, when he went to this lady's house, she said, please come to my house for bhiksha, to have food. And then he goes, and all she has is a dried amla, amalaki fruit, a gooseberry, dried, that too, meaning nissara, no juice in it. Why? Because she ate the chocolate cake she made? No. She had nothing else other than that. And that she was, and that happens to be full of antioxidants, so perhaps that's how she was surviving. And that final berry she saved for his meal that day, because she perhaps went out and foraged, and whatever she got from the ground, she got some dried berry, one dried berry, and that's all she had. And so she offered it to Adi Shankara, and she was very ashamed. She was crying because that's all she had to offer to this great saint who she really wanted to set foot in her house. And Adi Shankara composed what is called the Kanaka Dhara Stotram. Kanaka means gold. Dhara is a rain, a stream of gold, verses of praise to Goddess Lakshmi, abundance. And then even before he had finished chanting the first verse, it started to rain dried gooseberries in gold. It rained golden gooseberries. And even though all the people, the crowd soon collects whenever it is raining gold, even though all the people took as much as they wanted, still there was enough for this lady to live the rest of her life peacefully, without crying, without want. And why did this happen? Because he had no desire for that. So if she desired it and communicated it at the altar that he served as for her desire, he became the altar of surrender for her desire. And since his desire was not competing there, it became true. Her Shraddha was so much that it became true. So similarly, through a same mechanism here, and that's why in India also, another thing, we always take the blessings of the elders, because the idea is that the elders have fewer desires because they have stopped trying to fulfill them, hopefully with maturity. And and also they have no teeth, no hair. What are they going to desire? So if you want to be blessed by shampoo, go and approach someone who has total vairagya towards all hair products. Yeah, that person can give you that. That's the idea. So here also, Yama doesn't need wealth. Yama is very wealthy. Yama is handsomely paid for his services. And, Yama is all, he's a celestial, he's shining. And he's a person of knowledge. How do we know? Because he's qualified to teach Nachiketa. We know that he knows. When he starts to teach, you will see that he knows. So a person of knowledge doesn't want wealth, and if you are keeping on blessing me with wealth, each time you say it out of your mouth, my bank account there is being refurbished with all kinds of goodies. So I'm not worried about wealth. Lapsyamahe, we will get the wealth. All of us, we meaning his whole clan, he is speaking. We will be wealthy, no problem. I will be wealthy for not only with regard to my parents will be wealthy, but on the 7 generations that you have talked about, we will all be wealthy. That's why he uses the plural. Prapsyamahe, we will get wealthy. And then, as far as long life go, Adrakshma, having had your darshan and having surrendered to you, we will get the wealth. Va or Jivishyamo, we will also live. Yavad Ishishyasi. Actually, it should be Ishishyase, because Isha is second conjugation, Atmanepada. Ishate, and so it is Atmanepada, so it is not Ishishyasi, but it is Chandasam. It is a Vedic thing. So therefore, Jivishyamaha, so we will survive just in the same manner as the wealth. Blessed by you, we will survive. And besides, he makes a little fun. He says, well, my lifeline is strung by you, and the other end of my lifeline you are holding. So as long as you are holding that, why should I worry? And besides, you are in charge of death, so of course I cannot outlive that what is deigned by you. And if you want to give me a few more years, go ahead. And now that I have seen you, I know I'll get it, because I know you love me and you don't want me to die quickly. Yeah. I know you want me to be happy, and I know you want me to be wealthy, so all your sankalpa will come true without my wasting a boon. That's the idea. So this all I'm not interested in, because this is already gained. Don't give me that which was already given. Give me something new, Varastu me, for me, varaniyaha sa eva. That alone I want. What is that alone? Atma Tattva Vijnanam. The knowledge of myself is alone what I want. All these things you have lured me, I am not interested. Besides, they are already gained. Now that I am blessed by you. Very clever. See, practices economy in the sense of he is very parsimonious about what he chooses. He says, why waste the boon on something that's so easy to get, which is already gained? It's like that fellow who climbed the mountain to meet the wise old Swami sitting on the mountain. And he climbed day and night, froze in the snowstorm on the mountain, almost got crushed by an avalanche, and his hands and legs were sore, and he met the Swami on the mountain. And the Swami, being pleased with him, said, you can have 2 questions. Not boons, questions. Oh, really? Only 2 questions? Yes. What is your second question? So, like this, it would have been redundant, to get that which is already given. And really only 2 questions, by the time he asked that, 1 question was over. So this is useless. So therefore what? Therefore I have to ask something. I have to use my brains, and you're not going to just fob me off with some, trinkets. You tried to give me a mala, I took that, but then after this don't string me in a mala of your own making with all this wealth and health. I don't want all that, I already have that. See, seeing you, I already have that. So don't give me anything other than what I ask. Sa eva, only that I want. You see, he's a stubborn little chap and will not be easily fobbed off. Like a child that is fixated on a particular thing and you can't make it forget. This is how Nachiketa is, in a good way. He's not obsessed with something finite, he's obsessed with the infinite. Bhashya na prabhutena vittena tarpaniyo manushyaha nahi loke vittalabhah कस्यचित् तृप्तिकरः दृष्टः. Very straightforward. न प्रभूतेन वित्तेन, not through gobs of money. Tarpaniyah, the person is to be satisfied. We don't, this is not the way to satisfy a person. Nahi loke, nor is it drishtaha loke, nor is it seen in the world. In which world? In his world. In the world of earthlings. Vittalabhah kasyachit triptikaraha. All in nominative. Kasyachit vittalabhah na triptikaraha loke drishtaha. Not na loke drishtaha. Loke drishtaha, you can take it both ways. Na loke drishtaha, it is not seen in the world. What is not seen in the world? Vittalabhah triptikaraha kasyachit. That the gain of money is equal to satisfaction for anyone. Or vittalabhah na triptikaraha kasyachit iti loke drishtaha. So we also have seen in the world that not by money alone is someone satisfied. So the word na is like dahali deepa nyaya. It's like you put the logic of the lamp in between the 2 houses. Which house does it light up? Both. So the na drishtaha loke, you can take it. It is not seen in the world that anybody is satisfied through money, kasyachit, or in the world it is seen that no one is satisfied through money. Okay? And then what? यदि नाम
यदि नाम
अस्माकं
अस्माकं
वित्ततृष्णा
वित्ततृष्णा
स्यात्
स्यात्
लप्स्यामहे
लप्स्यामहे
प्राप्स्यामहे
प्राप्स्यामहे
इति
इति
एतत् वित्तम्
एतत् वित्तम्
अद्राक्ष्म
अद्राक्ष्म
दृष्टवन्तः वयं
दृष्टवन्तः वयं
चेत्वा त्वाम्
चेत्वा त्वां
Then he says furthermore yadi, if yadi nama, let us suppose, yadi nama is an expression, suppose, let's suppose asmakam vittat trishna syat, let us suppose that we, I, me and myself, were full of greed, trishna, longing, greed, for what? Vittam, for wealth. Let's say I was a wealth hog, I was mad after wealth. With the Trishna, I had great longing for wealth. Then what? Then with the Trishna syat, let us say I had that, lapsyamahe, I would gain it definitely. Would gain. Future, simple future. Lapsyamahe means prapsyamahe. We would gain it, definitely. Gain what? Iti etad vittam. Iti etad vittam adrakshma drishtavantah vayam chet tvam. So having seen you, having had your darshan, and what kind of darshan? A long darshan which is still continuing, because with the celestials, even the corner of the eye, if they look at you, it's enough. They shower you with all kinds of blessings. But here you have been looking at me straight on for the longest time, asking me about my life, and here we are in conversation. And plus you have touched me, washed my feet and done seva to me. Imagine how much blessed I would be. People crave to have a sidereal glance of Bhagavan. And here you have, we have been in contact full on. And each time you address me, I am getting richer in age, in fame, in name, in wealth, in stature, in children, in cows. In fact, my father is just moving to a new house, even as we speak. So this is what happened to Sudama, Sudama is a childhood friend of Lord Krishna. And as friends go, sometimes one becomes very rich and the other one is in dire poverty. Not gooseberry status, slightly better, but they had several children, 9 or 10 of them, and all of them were wearing rags, and they were living in a shack. And Sudama's wife said, go see Krishna and ask him to make you rich, because obviously he can do that much. He is the king of Dwarika. He is the king. I mean, come on. And you can say, look, we appeared in the yearbook together. In the Gurukula yearbook, we appeared together. Look, side by side our photographs are there. We were inseparable in boyhood. We were always, stealing other people's butter and, stealing other people's mangoes off their trees. We were doing all kinds of mischief and we had great love for each other. And, come on, pass a few things my way. Maybe some used jewels that you are tired of seeing. Maybe some silk that you have worn already once and you will not wear again. Some gold, just that. Nothing else I want, And you go ask him that. Sudama's wife, schools him. But he is a very simple person, a very dharmic person. And he said, you don't do that to friends. You don't go show up and ask for things. It's most unbecoming. You don't do that. You go to find out their welfare. You say, how are you? It's a long time since I saw you. And you don't go ask something. You bring something to them. You don't ask something. This is not done like this. That's not how to maintain a friendship. Maintaining the friendship is about giving. It's not about always give me, give me, give me. Rest assured, if you keep saying that, nobody will call. Yes. It's not about give me, it's about how can I serve you. That's the true basis of friendship. How can I help you? What can I do for you? And here what? Here, even though Sudama's wife, she's not greedy. She is just, desperate. And people do things in desperation, for which they should be forgiven. So she was not a bad lady. She was just desperate, and she had faith that Krishna can alter their circumstances. It was getting harder and harder to keep, having children and keep having to feed them. And all of them were just running around, half clad because they were so poor. And so he says, no, it's friendship is about giving, not receiving. Then she says, okay, just go, try to ask him. And it's about giving. I will make some wonderful puffed rice. Very easy to make and very cheap, and very nutritious also. You take the rice and beat it in an iron vessel with an iron kind of a hammer like yantra, what am I trying to say? Like a pestle. Yes, iron pestle, iron mortar. The idea is it is fortified. The puff rice is puffed with iron, fortified. Then it's very easy to cook because then it is done in the husk, so that all the vitamins of the husk transfer. People in Eugene love this kind of a thing. That's why I'm saying this. I'm taking time to talk about this. So, because here they eat the husk and throw away the rice. So if you go and buy rice husk, that's more expensive than the rice itself. So you beat it with the husk and all the vitamins are transferred to the rice and the husk comes off. And then what? And the iron, you beat it some more with the iron rod, and then what happens? Iron in the mortar and the pestle is transferred to the rice. It's now fortified with vitamin A, B, C, D, E, everything. Iron, etc. And then it's very easy to cook. It doesn't need to cook because it's beaten out of existence. And so you just soak it for 5 minutes and then you can make endless preparations. You can, put some jaggery and coconut milk and you have an instant dessert. Wow, very nice. Who knew that attending Kathopanishad class gives me recipes? Or you can make a little seasoning of mustard seeds and little bit of oil and some ginger, and you can make it, fancy it up by putting some chopped peas and carrots. Sounding good, no? Yeah. And then you soak this for 5-10 minutes and then you throw it in after the vegetables are cooked and just saute it for 2 minutes, put some salt, it's done. Fantastic. This is breakfast food. Very nutritious. It's called poha in North India. Puffed rice. So she may not have had any fancy things, carrots and vegetables, And so what did she do? She just put some jaggery and soaked it and made this. And then, she wrapped it up in saran wrap or tin foil, whatever. And made a little poultice of it and gave it to Sudama. All right, you say it is all about giving and you refuse to go empty-handed. Take this, because when he was a child, you say you used to eat this together. These were the days. And he is very ashamed. He says, oh my God, this is just some jaggery and puffed rice. And jaggery is, non-purified sugar. So, and Krishna has the best cooks from all over India, they're all over the world, except not so Great Britain. That food is not worth talking about. But, except that place, every other place, all the cooks are gathered. And they are cooking everything in the Dwarika palace. And here I am taking this miserable offering of this rice. Pure puffed rice with some jaggery. What? He will not even look at it. And he just says yes, yes, because he wants to keep the peace in the house. Sudama is a people pleaser and is very non-confrontational. And then so he trots off to go meet Krishna because he was ordered by the wife, don't come back until you see him. All right, I'm going. Stop giving me a headache, I'm going. And then he says, good, I'm going away for a few days. Little respite from this constant, nagging. I don't want to hear about how poor we are all the time. And so he takes it carefully, goes there, goes to the palace, and he sees that the pillars of the palace are studded with gold, gems, pillars made of solid gold and studded with diamonds and all kinds of things. In fact, all you have to do is rub against the pillar and some gold will rub off. You can go straight from there to the jeweler, and say just shave off the back and you can be rich for life. It's like that kind of a palace. And you can and he goes in, all these sentries, first they mistake him for a beggar and says, hey, you cannot go. But Krishna says, let him come in. He recognizes him through his Divya Drishti, through his foresight, his celestial foresight. He recognizes that his friend has come to meet him. And he just embraces him. Even though this fellow is in tattered dhoti, he embraces him and he says, oh my God, I haven't seen you for such a long time. Come. Meet Ruku. Who is Ruku? Rukmini. Rukmini is his wife. Usually when the name Rukmini is given to girl children, the short form is Ruku, because who's going to have time to say Rukmini? Yeah, Rukmini means the one who is of shining nature, who like gold. Yeah. Meet Ruku. Ruku, this is my childhood friend. And Rukmini is not impressed. For reasons that will be told later. Not because she has, she's jealous of his friends or anything like that. Reasons that are going to be told later. So Rukmini says, all right, fine, no problem. And, and then talk, they share nostalgia about the days gone by. They share all this talk. They have a wonderful time. And Krishna claps his hand and the world's cooks, go out of their way. The world kitchen, which is Krishna's palace, go out of their way to make all kinds of dishes and put it in front of Sudama. No, eat this. No, you're going to like this. You must have these mangoes. These mangoes have come from here and this has come from there and this is from here. You must eat this. And seeing all these royal food spread in front of him, Sudama feels very ashamed and kicks the little saran wrap package underneath the chair he's sitting. He's so ashamed. He spreads his dhoti around so that nobody even sees, because he's too ashamed to present it, because he's got all these wonderful things. This is how this fellow dines every day. My friend Krishna, who is so rich, he's a king, and then my little packet, he just slowly just puts it under the chair so that nobody sees it. He hides it. And then they have the food. Everything is so tasty. He's full. Krishna is full. Ruku says, I can't even imagine eating anything more. And then Krishna says, I don't believe you came empty-handed. What did you bring me? And very ashamed, shamefacedly, he retrieves that thing, and gives it just like this, full of just mortified with embarrassment. He says, it's not even nicely packed. This was our last piece of saran wrap. And this is so badly made, so badly packed. This is how you are used to, And then after that it was wrapped in a muslin cloth also, which had holes in it. And so Krishna says, oh my God, you brought me poha, you brought me puffed rice. This is my favorite. don't bring dessert. He tells the cooks, this is dessert. This is my favorite. And he starts to eat it. One handful he eats, second handful he eats, third handful he eats, fourth handful he is about to eat, and Ruku catches hold of his hand. Yeah. And she says, no, enough. And she shakes the fist, because if you press some things here, the fist opens, Yeah, there is a trick there. If you know, Ruku knew acupressure. Before marriage, she had studied anatomy and physiology. A thing that came very handy when she had to make Krishna's paw release the rest of the poha. She says, enough. Krishna says, all right. Ruku is not separate from Krishna. Ruku is not jealous of Krishna. Ruku is the shining power of manifestation of Krishna. That's why she's always Rukmini is with Krishna. She's just separated from him as though to show that the shining, resplendent aspect of that. She is the Shreem of Krishna. That's what she is. Shreem. Shreem means abundance, Lakshmi, prosperity, success, Riddhi. That is what she is. She always goes with Krishna. And what does she do? She says, enough. Why? Not because she's afraid that it's made under unhygienic conditions, somewhere in a shack, and he'll get a stomachache. No. Because each time he is eating, Sudama's life is getting so big, blessed with so many blessings, that they will not be able to handle it. Yeah, because you should have riches, but enough that they don't handle you. You should be able to handle them. Yeah. So she says, enough. Save this for other devotees or later on, not all at once. Because there is nothing worse to make you off track than riches all at once. Sudden riches, you go berserk. And she says, no, he's too good. He's too valued a friend to make him completely go berserk with riches. This is enough. So then goodbyes are said, and Krishna gives him a piece of his own yellow cloth. Pitambara Dhari loves yellow. And then, he says, you please take this. This is my present for you. And he, Sudama cannot bring himself to ask, please make my circumstances better. Please fill me, give me at least one gold coin, because otherwise I'll have to live in the outhouse, dog house. Yeah. Because she's not going to let me in. And we used up the last of the savings for the saran wrap and the puffed rice, and there is nothing more where it's coming from. I am in the dog house. She's not even going to let me in the house. He doesn't, even though that's the truth. He is such a titikshu. He has so much titiksha, this Sudama, that he dare not ask for anything. He says, thank you for this yellow cloth. I will cherish it and pray to it all my life. And I think he asked for the padukas also. And he is given the padukas. He wraps it, his spare shoes. He wraps it in the yellow cloth, takes it upon his head and goes back. A very sad man. Not sad that he has seen Krishna. Sad about what is to come. How to deal with this lady, Yes. And how to deal with her anger, her despair, her hopelessness. When he goes, he doesn't even recognize his neighborhood, forget the house. What is standing in lieu of the shack is a mansion. And then a very nicely dressed lady, wearing a nice Kanjivaram sari, those are the best kind, with this big a border, wearing all gold, decked in gold. Carrying a nicely scrubbed baby, also decked in gold. And other children also decked in gold. He doesn't recognize any of them. He says, who are all of you? She says, idiot, I'm your wife. What? What's all this? Look what happened to us. Look how much wealth we have. Thank you for asking. He says, I never asked. Anybody else would have said, no, I asked. Yes, you should be thankful to me for the rest of your life. He's very honest. He says, I never asked him a thing. This is what is called grace. Showering grace. Any contact with the Devata is enough to turn the life around. And Nachiketa, in his babyhood, Nachiketa's mummy had told him story of Sudama, Krishna, all these kinds of stories. So he knew that being in contact with Yama, shaking hands with Lord Yama, all the things he wants, he is definitely going to get. He says, why waste a boon on these things which I have already gained? Therefore, what I want is that alone. We'll come back and see the rest of it. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. 10 minutes, we'll come back.